Abe's Oddysee. New and tasty. This is actually the first time I ever played an Oddworld game, which is kind of saying something. I mean, the initial game was released in 1997, and this remake was made in 2014. And I could swear I remember seeing the intro video to this game being shown on MTV's Liquid Television. It's actually the first of the Oddworld series. Although I don't think it was initially planned as a series at the start. But it could have been. And it literally opens with this movie explaining, the story of Abe. See, Abe is a Madokan. He is a slave of the Gluckans working at Rupture Farms. Well, apparently he was cleaning the hallway near the boardroom when they were discussing the newest treat that they were going to make. They had a very bad habit of literally hunting or using the food sources to extinction. And many of the quote food sources they have used in the past had been, well, depleted. Well, Abe finds out from this boardroom meeting that he managed to quote overhear that the next food source, the big new and tasty treat, is going to be Madokans. Uh-oh. And Abe does the quote typical thing you would do in such a situation, I would think. And he goes to escape. He also goes to rescue as many Madokans as he can. Now, this is where the trick of the game comes in. See, first you have to escape Rupture Farms. And of course, work your way to a Madokan village, where there are some free Madokans. And then you must so your first thing is escaping, but of course there's still some creatures that are there pent up, and some that are completely loyal to the Gluggons. And so, you have to be careful, and you have no weaponry. Abe has some abilities, though. He can actually chant, which they do have some defenses against to keep Abe from chanting. But he has to chant. He can then control some of the creatures like the Sligs. And he can then control them to cause problems. Clear up problems, get past obstacles, that kind of stuff. And of course, after he is successful at that, he will be released. Of course, he gets past that. Now, here's the thing about the game. There are two endings to this game. And part of it, that endings, is dependent on how many of the Madokans you save. If you manage to rescue every one of them, you get the good ending. If you don't, well, you get the bad ending. Which means, unless you play this multiple times, or use a very good walkthrough or anything like that, you're not going to do it. And I was playing it blind, so. But I think in the original and in the new and tasty version, there are hidden areas where there are more Madokans to be found if you can find those hidden areas. Now, this is a game about learning. You have infinite lives in this game. At least in the new and tasty version. I don't know how many you get in the original. But you learned the way to solve puzzles in that. You have to be careful. You don't want to get hit too many times. Your health is actually measured by how many birds you can have following you. And yes, you can chant and get more birds. You can also find some birds, quote, flying in circular pattern and use them to open portals to send Madokans through. You can communicate using the game speak, which you could tell them to wait, follow me, stay here, hi, all that fun stuff. And at certain points, you will actually have to use them to issue special commands to utter passwords to get past parts. Now, I don't know if that's in the original or not. But that gets a little funny, too. I mean, you got a high, as part of your password, you got a high whistle, you got a low whistle, and Abe can fart. Which actually can make them all laugh after a while. And those come in handy, especially when you get into the temples. Now, of course, once you get to, that happens after you get to the Madokan village area. And you're sent off to two temples, one in the homelands of the Paramites and one in the homeland of the Scrags. Or Scrabs. I think it's Scrabs. Which you must clear a temple in each one by lighting a torch in different areas and then going through a gauntlet of some sorts to get the markings for that temple. Once you go through these two temples, and trust me, they are anxiety inducing, because you actually have to figure out how to get past these things. But in the final part of those temples, you can actually go through a background to observe your whole path that you're going to take. This is a blessing, because once you start that path, you have to complete it, and it is going to be a non-stop run. I kid you not, it's a non-stop run. They are going to constantly come after you. But once you clear both temples, you are given special powers that During some parts in the Return to Rupture Farms, you can unleash a powerful blast that will allow you to do things in areas that you couldn't before. Case in point, if you're in an area with a chance suppressor and unleash this power, it will destroy it. It will destroy all creatures in that area that are not Madokan. And if you send a certain amount of Madokan through a porthole, you get another charge of this blast. And then you return to Rupture Farms, and you must go through all of the Zoologs, because that's what they call them, and rescue the Madokans. Now, of course, the Madokans aren't sleeping or cowering in fear, but you do have they're working, and you have to be very, very careful when you're rescuing these things because they can get shot or killed by the sligs. So you have to really be careful. I was not overly successful because, of course, I lost some in that. Of course, once you're aware of when you're going to lose or you're not going to get the best ending. You're sort of, yeah, fuck it. Now, once you get through that part and free all of them, you're on your final part, which is actually heading to the boardroom, where you're supposed to basically, quote, make it through all the traps leading up to the boardroom, get into the boardroom, pull the lever, which is supposed to, quote, end things. However, just as Abe were to pull the lever, he ends up getting knocked out by one of the sligs. And this is where you have the end game and what happens. You see, if you are able to rescue all the Madokans, they will transport you out of there before you're dumped into the meat grinder. If you miss just one, you get dumped into the meat grinder. Now, in the original, that was a total of 99 Madokans that you had to rescue. In this new and tasty version, they upped the number to 299, which means there are some of these secret areas are where you're going to find some of them. Now, they did a very good job, I think, in this new and tasty version, because it's a lot better graphics than it was in the original release. And I think it was initially released for the PlayStation. Yeah, I think the first one came out on the PlayStation. Although, yeah, originally for the PlayStation. Though I probably guess it was released on other platforms after they saw how popular it was. And it started a whole franchise. And Abe's been featured in actually about 4 of the titles. although in some ways it was changed. Because they did create newer versions, and there were probably other games that they wanted to get out there, but they never got them out. And although, I mean, Abe is unusual enough and lovable enough, he is basically a character thrust into things quite by fate. Although apparently he did win a employee of the month. I'll admit I never played this game because it was initially released for a system I didn't own. And I only got this one because it was a freebie at one time on Epic Games. I can honestly say now that I'm glad I played it, but I have no desire to pursue the series. It's one thing to experience a game that has had an impact. It's another to really want to play it. So Abe's Oddysee, I'm new and tasty. I'm glad I got to play it. But I don't think I'll ever want to play it again. If these games are your cup of tea, I would recommend playing them. There is too much relying on memory for me, and I never have been fond of the games where it's an all or nothing situation. I mean, it's either you rescue them all, or or you get the bad ending. Miss one, well, he's not the best. But that's how the game was designed. I suppose, like, if you're one to want to strive for that 100%, it has its replayability. For me, I would have never gotten it if it hadn't been for the freebie, to be honest. But I'm glad I picked it up as a freebie and got a chance to experience it. And that's all I'm going to say about Abe's Oddysee, new and tasty. I do hope you've enjoyed my opinions on it. If you disagree, well, that's you're allowed to. Not every game is for everybody, and that's the honest to God truth. And who knows? Maybe I might not. I mean, the one thing I have to say is that when it gets to the hardest points in the game, like that run through the to the boardroom, I was glad I found I could do quick saves, because I probably would have thrown the game in frustration if I had to keep redoing that section over and over and over again to try and do it flawlessly. And like I said, that's all I'm going to say about it. Until next time, I hope you've enjoyed listening to me talk about this, and I hope you subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, watch my playthrough of the game, and until next time, bye all, and have fun. Bye!